Welcome to Get the Right Job. I'm Jeff Magnuson. Today's episode is a little bit different. It is an audio recording of a video seminar I did back in September of 2020 to a group of Marriott employees on their private Facebook group page. As you know, in 2020, the hospitality industry was hit especially hard by the pandemic, and a lot of these folks have been struggling and lost and didn't know where to go. Someone who reached out to me on TikTok asked if I would do this seminar, and I did. I wasn't able to get the whole recording, but I was able to get about 28 minutes of it. So enjoy it. It'll absolutely apply to you. If you have questions, please just send me a note through my website, jeffmagnusonconsulting.com, and I will be happy to answer it. So for now, here's the recording. A quick intro about me. My name is Jeff Magnuson. I'm a career consultant. I've been doing this for about 3.5 years now. I left corporate America. After 15 years, I worked in finance. I worked in marketing in 2 different industries. I was not in HR. I was not a recruiter. And I mention that because a lot of the advice out there that's floating around that I'll talk about really comes from that perspective. I agree with some of it, a lot of it I don't. My advice comes from things that I experienced personally as a job seeker. I've been in your shoes before, looking for work during difficult periods, which I'll talk about. And I've also heard hundreds of stories from the clients I've worked with over the last 3 years. So I stand behind all of this advice. It's a different perspective, generally speaking. It comes from a personal place. There is a lot of information out there when it comes to job searching. You can Google any one of these topics and you will get pages and pages and pages of information. Just be really careful because you don't want to overwhelm yourself. There are more than one way to manage yourself and manage this whole process. What I'm going to take you through is obviously very high level because I only have, a set amount of time. I could do this all day, but we're not here all day. It's worked for me in the past. This has worked for clients. Again, see what resonates with you when going through the job search process. The first thing I want to mention is I feel for you in the situation that you're in. And it's really important to remind yourself either today or next week or next month that you're in this situation because of a pandemic, a global pandemic that has caused an economic crisis that we haven't seen in literally decades. It is not based on your performance. It is not based on anything that you did wrong. You're in a situation that was out of your control. It's devastating, it's horrible, but it's important to keep that perspective as you go along in this process. The fact that you guys have this group, this private Facebook group for Marriott employees is awesome. It's not something to be taken for granted because there are not a lot of options like this out there when job searching. It is typically a very solitary thing when you're job searching. And to be able to lean on each other and to use each other and to ask questions and to have a trusted source is a great thing. During normal times, so like a year ago when the economy was rolling, the job search process normally a very long, slow, cumbersome process. And it's not because of you guys, it's the way companies operate. They typically involve a lot of people in the process and it can move very slowly. During the pandemic now, it's the middle of September, there are companies hiring. The economy is not what it was, so obviously it's not as robust as it was, let's say, a year ago, but there are companies hiring. So you want to not listen to any news reports about unemployment figures and things like that. It's not relevant. That data is not going to help you. They are hiring. It is a little bit slower, so you have to also be patient because I know there are some of you, I've read the wall of people posting in the Marriott group. There are some of you who have been working for Marriott, some for decades, and maybe you haven't interviewed in a long time. Maybe you haven't even had to update your resume in 20 years. And I understand that, but it's important then to understand what you're walking into, what the situation is like. and how using your network is going to help you, and how the process could take some time. The more information that you know up front, the better off you will be. The other point I want to talk about is not something that's discussed enough, in my opinion, and this is where my perspective can really help. Finding good people to hire is difficult for companies. They don't talk about it, but any of you out there listening, either now or later, if you were responsible for hiring people at Marriott, you know that it's a difficult process. It's exhausting. It's tough to find people. It's annoying. It's time consuming. Sometimes there's a lot of red tape you have to go through. Then you have to train people. And if you hire the wrong person and then you have to start all over again, it's a nightmare. It is so much extra time. So even though companies sometimes get hundreds of resumes for a particular position, it's still not easy for them to find the right fit. You have to keep that in mind when job searching. Just because it's not being talked about by companies, and you can understand why. If they're going to talk about it, they kind of lose their edge a little bit that they think they have by letting you think as a candidate that they have the choice of anybody they want based on the resumes they got. And that's just not the case. You as hospitality employees, and I'll get into this in a moment, go way beyond your job description. That is going to be something that you are going to have to harness and be comfortable talking about as you go through the job search process. Don't let whatever your job title or whatever your previous job description was prevent you from going after roles that interest you. All right, so now I want to get into the topics that I had laid out. And one of the first questions that came around when Stephanie posted this on the wall earlier in the week or the end of last week was, I don't know what I want to do next, or I'm not sure what I want to do next. And that's fine. You're right, because the hospitality industry, some of you may not want to go back into it right now, or maybe you don't want to go back into it at all. Whatever you're thinking in your mind is okay. As I said before, you have skills that go way beyond what you did, whether you were front desk, whether you were an engineer, whether you were in sales, it doesn't matter. You have gained skills and experience over the last 5, 10, 15 years that you've been there that you now have to leverage toward what you want to do. So if you're in the camp of, I don't know what I want to do, use the resources that are out there and available to you to help you make a decision. So how do you do that? Think about what you did in the past that you really enjoyed. What part of the job did you really enjoy? Was it customer service? Was it managing people? Was it managing a budget? Whatever it was, don't think about salary. Don't think about job titles. Don't think about anything other than those things that you did that you really enjoyed. Okay? And then what you want to do is write down some of those terms, like I mentioned before as examples. And you go to LinkedIn in the Jobs tab, Indeed, Glassdoor, ZipRecruiter, Google, and you start Google Jobs, and you start typing in those keywords to see what jobs start populating. And use major cities, regardless of where you live, like New York, Houston, Chicago, San Francisco, Seattle, big cities, just so you get a better return on the jobs that populate. You're not looking to apply to these jobs. You're simply using them to see what's out there, because you're not going to be able to know all of the jobs. There are plenty out there that you're just not aware of. For example, if you enjoyed managing people at the hotel, that's awesome. That will absolutely translate to managing people in an office. Customer service. Every industry, every company has some component of customer service associated with it. These job descriptions that come back will help inform you of what else is out there over and above the obvious hospitality industry. And when you start reading those job descriptions, have a piece of paper nearby, have a Word document. When you start reading it and something resonates with you, you start to get like a physical, a micro reaction like, oh, that sounds interesting, write it down. Or if you get something that's like, oh, hell no, I don't want to do that, write it down. And you'll start to form you'll start to see even more keywords that interest you, and in turn you can plug those into the job search bars to get even more job descriptions. This is simply meant to help you figure out what interests you and what you would want to pursue next. You're using information that's already out there to work to your advantage. And you're doing it passively, you're doing it on your own time. And the reason that's important is because when you start to do your resume and LinkedIn updates, which I'll talk about in just a second, you want to make sure that your resume and your LinkedIn are pointing in the direction that you want to go next. So you want to highlight those crossover skills. So when a hiring manager picks up your resume and they can read it for a particular job, they can think, oh yeah, I want to talk to this person. Because that's the whole point of your resume. It has one job, and that's to get you interviews. As you're going through the job search process now, don't think about, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job. I know everybody's situation is different, but what you really need right now are interviews. It's a step-by-step process, and that's what you want to focus on, getting as many interviews right now as possible. Taking a half a step back, once you start uncovering jobs that interest you, the next step that you can do to learn more is to go onto LinkedIn, and now on the main search bar, type in those job titles, and you'll start seeing people populating who have those jobs in different companies. And you could start connecting with them and reaching out to them and asking them, are they willing to speak with you for 10 or 15 minutes so you can ask them some questions and get some advice? All you're doing is asking. The worst that they'll do is delete the email. So what? There are a lot of people out there who are willing to help. All you have to do is ask them. And you're not asking to hand over your resume. All you're asking to do is to speak with them so you can then learn more about the role beyond the job description that you picked up. So now let's move on to the resume, because this is such an important document that you want to make sure that it's written properly for where you want to go next. On my website, it's jeffmagnusonconsulting.com. There are free resume templates that you can download. Click it, it turns into a PDF, and you could save it to your computer. The reason I'm mentioning that now is because I'm going to go through it audibly talking about it, but it's easier when you can visualize it using those templates. You don't have to follow along right now. The point is, you put your information at the top, including a 3 or 4 sentence summary about who you are, what you do, and then what you're looking to do next. And all of this in mind is you are starting to highlight those skills for the next job, not what you did. You did a ton of things. They don't need to know everything. You want your resume to be relevant. It has to be relevant to whomever's reading it, so they say, hey, we need to get this person in here for an interview. You can have your jobs listed in reverse chronological order. That's nothing new. If you've been at Marriott for a number of years, that's okay. Just put Marriott once, and then you have the job titles underneath. If you were promoted during that time, mention it. Don't assume. You want to take all the assumptions out of your resume when somebody's reading it. If you can include metrics or any type of numbers when talking about your wins, use it. And I understand not every role lends itself to those types of metrics, and I'll come back to that in a second. Your bullet points, you want to focus on not so much what you did in terms of duties and assignments and what your day-to-day was. You want to focus more on achievements and accomplishments. And the reason you want to do this is this is the main way to stand out on your resume among many other applicants. This is the number one mistake that people make. They only talk about their duties and their day-to-day. And the problem is, imagine you're a hiring manager getting 10 resumes that all say the same thing. You don't know who to call. But when you start talking about your specific achievements and accomplishments, that makes you stand out because nobody's resume is going to sound like yours. Going back to if you have metrics, like a lot of people in sales, for example, it's pretty easy. They have increased sales, hit their quotas, whatever. But if your particular role doesn't have those easy metrics, if you will, talk about what did you do? Did you do anything to save money? Did you improve a process somehow? Did you train employees? Did you make your department or your company better in some way? Talk about it. That's what's going to help you stand apart. And if you can talk about it through the lens of what the next role you're looking to do is looking for, that's going to be the ultimate payoff. Because then you are connecting the dots for the hiring manager or HR or whomever is reading your resume for a specific role. Right now, if you're not working, there are tons of free classes that you can get on, or low cost, on Udemy, Coursera, LinkedIn, YouTube. And if you take those courses and they're relevant, feel free to put them on your resume. A lot of these are phenomenal courses now, even though they're free, even though it's not, an accredited college, it doesn't matter. These are taught by professionals and they are truly remarkable, and you can learn quite a bit and even brush up on skills that maybe you haven't had to use in a while, like software skills. If you're not great with Excel or PowerPoint, for example, you can become pretty good with it during this time simply by taking those courses and following along. Education and skills and so on will round out the resume. If you have other questions about the resume, obviously send me, just put the question in the comments and I'll get to it after the talk. Use those general tips, use the templates that are available on my website to put your resume together. You only have to go back, I know some of you are younger, some of you are older, you only really have to go back like 15 years or so. It's not a hard and fast number, but you don't have to put everything on there. Again, just keep it relevant. 2 pages max, absolutely max. There's things that you can take out and pare it down. Font size, I would say don't go lower than 10-point font. When you start getting into 9 and 9.5, it starts to get really small. If you're not on LinkedIn right now, you need to be on LinkedIn right now. And if you're not a social media person or you're not technically savvy, it doesn't matter. It's a very intuitive system. It will only help you during your job search. There is a tutorial when you walk through it. When you set it up. If you don't have an account right now, get a headshot, get a smiling photo of yourself, get a banner photo. You want to make sure that you update your headline, add in a good summary, which is now called the About section. You put in the experience so it mimics your resume. It doesn't have to be a 1-for-1. Just put a bullet point or 2 for each job description. Keep it very brief. If you can reach out to people and get recommendations that they can write for you right through the site, I highly recommend that. They just look nice. They round out your profile nicely. You can add some skills on there. I'm on LinkedIn as well, so please connect with me and you can use my page as a template. Any type of work or articles or anything that you wrote, you can put in there. And the nice thing about LinkedIn is once your profile is optimized, LinkedIn's powerful because you can obviously, like I mentioned earlier, you can search companies, you can search salaries, you can connect with other people. But when your profile is optimized, other people will find you, because they're searching for people just like you're searching for jobs. And many of you have probably already been pinged by people while you were at Marriott. Hey, are you interested in this position? Blah, blah, blah. That's what you want, but you want to be contacted for relevant positions. Stay active on the site. All you have to do is spend 10 or 15 minutes a day liking comments, commenting on posts, writing some articles if you want, writing some short posts for yourself. The more you do that, the more your name is going to appear in the news feeds of your connections and other connections. And that's what you want right now. Once you have a handle on what you want to do next and you update your resume and you're ready to really job search, you need and want visibility. Again, for those of you who kind of roll your eyes to social media, I understand. It's fine. You can always make LinkedIn private once you get a new job. You don't have to delete your page. You could just make it private and nobody will find you. But I highly encourage you to use it to your advantage. It's really going to be a massive source for you, both in outgoing and incoming. The next piece I want to talk about, there's two more areas to cover here, is cover letters. So when you're applying to positions, I know when you're applying online, a lot of places are asking for cover letters. Sometimes they're not. And if I know you, the last thing you want to do is write cover letters. I know most people hate writing them. And I understand why. A lot of times you're putting all this work in and then nobody's even reading it, or they take time to write and so on. Here's the thing. A lot of people don't take the time to write them. So either they don't write them at all, or they just use boilerplate cover letters that are really easily spotted, and in my opinion, can make your first impression not great, because those are easy to spot by people reading cover letters. But when you take the time to write a short but impactful cover letter that demonstrates why you are interested in that specific role at that specific company, and then talk about what from your past, just one or two things that you've done that can fulfill the needs of what that hiring manager is looking for, I'm telling you, that cover letter is going to look different than most other cover letters that are sent, or the ones that obviously are not sent. And I'm talking like 2/3 to 3/4 of a page max. Spaces in between paragraphs. Paragraphs are like 2 or 3 sentences tops. These are really, really short. It allows the hiring manager to see how serious you are on paper, to hopefully increase your chances of getting those interviews. Now, the last piece for today, before the questions, is how do you apply? For some of you who have applied recently, or for those of you who have not done this for years, most of the job applications right now are online. And this is something that's come about, obviously, over the years. 20 plus years ago, there was no online applications. And what's happening now, too, is when you apply, a lot of companies, not every company, but a lot of companies have what's called ATS. It's an applicant tracking system, which are essentially the bots, if you will, that scan your resume looking for keywords and other metrics to then decide if your qualifications can be viewed by HR, who then reads your resume to then pass it on to the hiring manager, finance director, marketing manager, whomever's department it is. These ATS systems are part of larger software systems that were designed for HR. They were not designed for the job seeker. And the problem with these is every one of these systems, when people are sending in resumes, they can be customized to whatever they want. So when you read articles about this is how you beat ATS, blah, 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 there's no foolproof way to beat it, because you're never going to know what a company's specifically looking for with the ATS. You have to take a better approach. And when you write your cover letter and when you have your resume, you want to do what people used to have to do, and that's mail your cover letter and resume to the hiring manager through the regular mail. And yes, I know we're during a pandemic and some people are not working on site. I'll get to that in a second. So few people are doing this anymore. That's what makes this a great way to increase your chances of the right person seeing your resume. You want to get around those gatekeepers. You want to get around the ATS. You want to get around HR. You want to get around any recruiter that's internal. And you want to go right to the hiring manager, the person who has the need for you on his or her team. And you find this person on LinkedIn. You go to the company's page on LinkedIn, you click on the employees, and then you click on all filters. And you can then drill down by geography and most importantly by job title. So if you're looking for manager roles, you would look for senior managers or directors or associate directors to figure out who your potential hiring manager can be. And you address your cover letter to that person specifically. And then the address can be found on the About section on the LinkedIn's company page, or you just do a Google search and you send it in a 9x12 envelope, okay? Your cover letter is one sheet, your resume printed on 2 sides if you have to, that's a second piece of paper. Staple them together, sign your cover letter, put it in the envelope, hand address it, 2 stamps. In the US, 2 pieces of paper in that big envelope is 2 stamps, and you mail it off. And then keep track of it on an Excel sheet or on a piece of paper, and keep track of where you are sending these cover letters and resumes, and then move on. And that's what you want to do to be proactive. If you're not working right now, send 2 or 3 of these a day. Okay, and then keep track. Yes, you can still apply online once you mail it because all the work is done already. But if you're just applying online, you're not really applying to these companies because the return is so minuscule. What you need to do is increase your chances of getting interviews, and you don't want to rely on multiple stages, first the bots, then HR and or a recruiter, to then pass it on to the hiring manager. When you go around all of those people and all those things, you go right to the person with the need. It will resonate with the right person. I've done this before. It's worked twice for me in the past. I told you when I was in corporate America. It's worked for clients. Is it going to work every time with every person? No, of course not. But your odds are better than simply just applying online. And yes, coming back to the fact that not everybody's working in an office, depending upon the industry, this is where you can connect and send and email your cover letter and resume through LinkedIn to the hiring manager. Just save the cover letter and the resume as one document, one PDF, and mail it off. I don't love emails because they're so easily deleted and then forgotten about, but under the circumstances, it's better than not doing anything. You could still mail it as well. That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found the seminar helpful. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please drop me a line at jeffmagnusonconsulting.com. If you're looking for an additional resource, my book by the same title, Get the Right Job, is available on Amazon. If you're enjoying the show, please consider leaving a quick review or a rating on Apple iTunes. I would really appreciate it. And I'll see you at the next episode.